Hello and welcome. I'm Carlos Beck-Viana, Director of Marketing and Communications for CAST. We are very glad that you have joined us today for this special webinar in partnership with the Society for In Vitro Biology. CAST is a nonprofit organization dedicated to communicating credible, science-based information on food and agriculture. We serve as a trusted resource for policymakers, the media, and the public, providing clarity on complex agricultural issues. We bring together leading scientists and experts from academia, government, and industry to produce unbiased publications, convene critical discussions, and foster informal decision-making on the most pressing challenges in agriculture. CAST is organized into expert work groups that cover animal, food, and plant science. These teams collaborate across disciplines to create publications, host events, and support science-based dialogue. Our membership includes individuals, universities, libraries, scientific societies and associations, nonprofits, and corporations. We're all united by a shared commitment to advancing agricultural science and communication. If you're passionate about science communication, we invite you to become a CAST member. You'll gain access to our publications, events, and professional network. To learn more or to get involved, visit cast-science.org or follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and X. But before we dive into today's discussions, I want to highlight a recent CAST publication that ties directly into today's topic. It's titled AI in Agriculture, Opportunities, Challenges, and Recommendations, and it explores how artificial intelligence is transforming agricultural research and production, from generative AI and data systems to ethics and policy. This paper sets the stage for the type of conversation we are having today, and it's just one part of a broader CAST effort to engage with this emerging field. You can download the paper at our website or simply scan the QR code on your screen. And if you're interested in hearing more, we invite you to watch the official rollout event, which took place at Mississippi State University. And that full session is available right now on our YouTube channel. And there's another QR code for you on screen as well. So today's webinar is the first of several CAST-hosted events focused on artificial intelligence in agriculture and life sciences. So stay tuned because there's more to come. We are especially grateful to Dr. Seth Murray and Dr. Luis Tedeschi for their contributions, not only to the CAST paper, but also for joining us in today's important conversation. And now I am pleased to introduce our moderator, Dr. Deepika Chauhan. Dr. Chauhan is the Director of Plant Transformation at Pairwise, where she leads a team developing transformation platforms across multiple crops. So with a strong background in plant biotechnology and a passion for transforming and translating science into real-world impact, she brings both depth and clarity to today's discussion. Dr. Chauhan, the floor is yours. I think you're muted. There it is.
Thank you, Carlos. On behalf of the Society for In Vitro Biology, we are pleased to welcome everyone to this joint venture of CAST and SIVB. Founded in 1946, SIVB is a professional society with a mission to foster the scientific and technical growth of its members, conduct biotechnology research to understand biology at the cellular and developmental level, promote, expand, and support the scientific knowledge base for the benefit of the society. Our mission is accomplished through the 2 world-class journals and an online newsletter, annual meetings, workshops, and through support of teaching initiatives in cooperations with educational institutions. Today's webinar supports this mission. It is the first installment of our revitalized webinar program. The SIVB membership and education committees are working on additional webinars. So keep an eye out for more webinars this year. If you are a member and haven't renewed your membership, please do so by scanning the QR code here. If you are not a member but want to support our mission, we encourage you to join the society at members.sivb.org or simply scan the QR code on your screen. Some of the benefits of you becoming an SIVB member include, but are not limited to, online access to our publications, discounted annual meeting registration rates, opportunities to share your research and network at these events, volunteer opportunities, recognition through prestigious awards, and more. SIVB will be holding 2025 In Vitro Biology meeting at the Hilton, Norfolk, the Maine, in Norfolk, Virginia this year from June 7th to 10th. Exceptional speakers similar to Dr. Tedeschi and Dr. Murray will be presenting their research on AI, machine learning, as well as other plant and animal biotechnology and genomics topics. Please scan the QR code to the right for more details on the program. And if you haven't done so already, I hope you will register to join us. Scan the QR code on the left or visit sivb.org meetings for more information. Lastly, SIVB is pleased to announce our new postdoc mentoring program, Match, where the postdoc mentors can gain insights into trends and opportunities in plant and animal biology and biotechnology, gain knowledge from the experts in the field to enhance their leadership and communication skills, and network with individuals who share common interest. We are filling positions for both mentors and mentees now. All participants need to be active member of SIVB. Please reach out to our SIVB business office or scan the QR code on your screen if you're interested in participating in this program. Now let's get started. I would like to introduce today's two phenomenal speakers. They'll be discussing machine learning tools which are being applied to spatially resolved omics data to reveal the molecular and spatial contextual factors that influence cellular identity and heterogeneity, advancing innovation in agriculture, biotechnology, and human health. First will be Dr. Seth Murray. Dr. Murray is a professor from the Department of Soil and Crop Sciences at Texas A&M University. He is a leader in maize breeding and field phenomics. He brings expertise in drone-based data collection and AI-driven trait analysis. Following Dr. Murray, we will welcome Dr. Louis Tedeschi to the webinar. He's a professor from the Department of Animal Science at Texas A&M University and a global authority on ruminant nutrition modeling. His work connects computational tools and sustainable livestock production. After both presentations are complete, we will offer the opportunity to address any questions you may have. You're welcome to place your questions in the chat during the presentation, and we will share them with the speakers during the Q&A period. This webinar is being recorded and will be made publicly available soon. Now, with the introductions out of the way, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Seth Murray, who will be speaking on AI and drone-powered phenomics in crop breeding. Welcome, Dr. Murray.
Thank you, Dr. Chauhan. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Really an honor and a pleasure to be here, especially with my good colleague, Luis. We had the opportunity to host the AI in Agriculture meeting here at Texas A&M last year, where we had about 350 people, and work on this AI in agricultural paper that I think CAST was pretty visionary in setting out. My background here is just showing what I normally talk about. So I'm a applied maize breeder. My goals are to develop improved crops. And so I came about the AI space a little bit unintentionally. The goal was not to necessarily develop a new technology. It was to make better decisions in improving our crops. And so if you want to learn more about that, I'll cover a high-level overview today, but there's plenty of other publications and presentations of more detailed information that I've shared. But so this is a picture of a drone over one of our maize breeding fields a few years ago. Oh. All right. I think that I put minimizing hype because I feel like there's so much hype in this space. It's really hard to separate what's actually actionable, what's being done versus what's anticipatory versus what's pure speculation. But I always get a chuckle out of these types of cartoons where, artificial intelligence brings a crowd now, but machine learning and statistics don't. But they're really all tools, and they build on each other. And we use every single one in our research program. So for whatever reason, we get these hot topics, and people are really interested. But hopefully, I'll show you some of what's being done and what may be done in the future. So I use this chart a lot. This is the Gartner hype cycle. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, they release this every year. We did one in a publication on drones about 2016, about 9 years ago. And these technologies over here to the left change every single year. And it's based on this innovation trigger that allows new technologies to come online. There's this peak of inflated expectations where everybody says, oh, this technology is going to solve all of our problems. Isn't it amazing? It's incredible. And then people find out all the problems, right? And we go through this trough of disillusionment. We see people not wanting to invest in it nearly as much. Meanwhile, some people are still making progress, and we hit the slope of enlightenment and eventually the plateau of productivity. So usually the stuff on the far left here, I have absolutely no familiarity with, right? It's outside of our area. It's the hottest, latest, and greatest technologies. And then as we go into something like generative AI, people are already, in some ways, deciding that it's, past its peak, and now we're looking for the next best thing. But beyond the hype, I think science has really already benefited a lot from some AI-based tools. And in AI-based tools, I would include machine learning and deep learning in there, as well as generative AI. And there's some pretty good reporting that's coming out that, people who are unbiased and that they're not profiting from it think we're going to reach artificial generalized intelligence here in the next few years. And that's really going to change everything for science, the nature of work, and other topics we all care about. But the Nobel Prize in Physics and Chemistry were both AI-based. One was for foundational discoveries that enable machine learning and artificial neural networks. And the other one was for AlphaFold and being able to do computational protein design. And those are solely AI, backed type of discoveries. And I think we'll see a lot more of this, of these major breakthroughs that we're going to have in science. So generative AI is also being rapidly adopted. If you ask your students, if you're a professor or your younger employees, they probably already rely on this tool. It was pretty impressive to see that generative AI was one of the fastest adopted technologies of all time. If we compare that to the adoption of the PC or of the internet, this has much more rapid adoption. And I think it's just so user-friendly, it's hard for people to avoid using something like ChatGPT. And then we see OpenAI that owns ChatGPT has over 400 million users. So, we're seeing tools for doing literature reviews. The usefulness of a literature review historically has been to, collate the literature and make sense of it. We're seeing AI get into synthesis and evaluation of scientific approaches and technologies. Some of my students who haven't known how to code, I tell them don't even bother anymore. A lot of them have taken code that they find on, Stack Overflow or something. They use ChatGPT to improve their code, and they have perfectly functioning code that they can help use ChatGPT or other similar AI tools to troubleshoot. And I think this ability to answer difficult scientific questions, this is something we're starting to think about now. We have a way that I don't think something nobody's ever tried before. And it seems like some of these AI tools are going to be useful for getting at things like causality over causation and answering these really difficult scientific questions that nobody's really considered or had to deal with before. So it's going to change. It is going to change everything, and it's in the process of changing everything. And that's part of what we wanted to address in this CAST paper. So it was led by Alex Thomason, who's a department head at Mississippi State in biological and agricultural engineering. There's a lot of other great colleagues here. I put stars on all the Texas A&M folks or soon to join Texas A&M folks. So it's a really exciting group of people and time to be thinking about this. But we make a couple really big distinctions here in this paper. One is narrow AI, which are these research tools, and I'll be presenting on a couple of those, versus this general or generative AI, which is really a large model that's trained on stuff not related to agriculture. And I'm going to show in a brief example in a second here how it can be trained on agriculture. But so far in our review, we found there's pretty limited examples of actual commercial products, right? And that's where the hype may be hard to discern. Research labs are producing a ton of AI products. We have 3 examples here at the end of this presentation. I'll show you. I know Dr. Tedeschi is also going to show a number of these. But that's very different from a operational commercial product, like something like ChatGPT, right? And so there aren't too many examples yet of these commercial products, but we can see them coming. We raised a lot of questions on scale. One of the things that's really different from these large language models is that the private sector is the one who's developed these and owns these. And that's very different than when you think about something like the Hubble Space Telescope, right? Or the human genome sequence. That was primarily driven by the public sector and a community. The private sector in this case is driving most of this. And so the public sector and researchers are going to have to learn to operate differently to be able to use that. We also have questions on scale. So is it going to affect big and small farmers equally? Is it going to be scale neutral? And the same thing goes for scientists. Are there going to be some scientists who have better ability to take advantage of these tools than others? There's cybersecurity and workforce questions. How is it going to change our workforce? How do we have to worry about cybersecurity when these things are so complex? We make some recommendations that regulation should not negatively impact the advancement of these tools. I think they could transform a lot of our difficult and maybe even wicked problems in agriculture, but not if they're completely locked down and regulated. So working in partnership on ethical use and self-regulating is something we would probably advocate for. But there's huge needs for making these types of tools a success. So one big one we identified, and I know it's sort of cliche, but it's funding. There's not a lot of dedicated funds for actually advancing AI tools in agriculture. And maybe part of that is because so much of this is being driven on the private sector side. We need trained people in this, and I'll connect that at the end. We need connections between disparate data set and this idea of findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable or fair data is one of the big barriers to incorporating agricultural knowledge into the larger, more general types of AI tools. So the one large language model type tool that we identified in our CAS publication is really this extension bot. And it's very similar to something that Ranveer Chandra's group led at Microsoft, where they used retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, to take the foundational LLM, which has been trained on things like the New York Times and NPR, right, and may not have any agricultural information. And then they use RAG to dump in hundreds of thousands of extension bulletins and peer-reviewed publications and other types of tools that will help train that large language model to better adapt to state, local, specific farmer problems and give more relevant results. So I think this is a really exciting tool. I'm really impressed by with what Oklahoma State has done with this and what Microsoft is doing, although it's less clear how to access Microsoft's results. These extension bots, a lot of states have already started partnering with them to upload their extension information to create a chatbot that a farmer can take a picture or ask a question and get a specific result for their region of the world based on literature. And that's a really exciting use of AI. So the main focus of my program now has really become phenomics, and my background's molecular quantitative genetics. But I just found that genomics information really wasn't giving me the types of gains that I thought were promised. And, you know, anything's a tool, genomics, phenomics, and it's all about what you're trying to do with that tool and how to get it out. The way we started with high-throughput phenotyping was a project in 2016 that included 40 faculty from 5 colleges here. And we started with the classic thing of automating routine measurements, you know, plant height, estimating grain yield where the camera can see the grain yield, estimating disease. But pretty quickly, we found there was, with any new tool, right, you should look at what that tool can do and not just to adapt that tool to what you've always done. So pretty quickly, we were able to find some new signatures of eliteness. So we focus a lot on taking temporal measurements throughout growth. senescence and grain filling period. And I'm not going to be specifically talking about any of these today, more just giving you a high level overview. Phenomic prediction and selection, which I think is probably one of the most game-changing new technologies for crop improvement, animal improvement, maybe even human and personalized medicine, which involves treating phenomic features, which are things that are hard to describe. It could be a vegetation index, it could be the diameter of your nostril. But when you have a very dense, deep data set on that, we can use that to predict things that we care about, like grain yield or human health. Deep learning and AI and images. So I'll show you some examples of that. But all of these things are sort of research tools for plant breeders or other people who are going to be trying to improve the crop or understand some type of biology or ways to apply things. What we hope and what we've seen is that we can identify new stress signatures that farmers can use for managing their crop. I'm very enthused by what the animal community has done, where some of these monitoring systems can beat a veterinarian and when an animal is ready to be inseminated. And then finally, we're going to identify new phenotypes and mechanisms of biological importance. And if you think about why traits have always been measured, they have some usefulness, but mostly it's because somebody conceived of them, they measured them and showed that they had usefulness. That doesn't necessarily make them the best measurement. And so we're going to find new measurements that work better. So this was just a visual depiction I wanted to show. And this specific study was, we were able to predict southern rust as early as 17 days after planting, well before the plants actually experienced the disease. And I can explain the mechanism of that if we have time later. But this just mainly shows our goal here, which is to fly drones. And now we're trying to fly every 2 to 3 days over about, we plant about 17,000 plots, about 7,000 varieties. And then, these are different vegetation indices just that we're able to be visually scored based on these drone images by humans and use that in prediction models. So one of the most exciting results I think my group has had so far is genomic prediction has become the standard in crop breeding. And the idea there is not to find genes, it's to predict the best individual by using large, high-dimensional data sets of genomic information. So what we did was we compared genomic prediction with about 153,000 markers. It's a small population, 280 hybrids, but we compared genomic prediction to temporal phenomic multispectral prediction and temporal phenomic RGB prediction. So both using drones capturing multiple flights over growth. And the most phenomic features we got up to was in the multispec, about 1,000 features, which was 89 vegetation indices times 12 time points. And what we found was, in general, phenomic prediction is about equivalent to genomic prediction. And that's with this being the first study in this type of space. So I think as we improve these methods and refine these methods, we find that phenomic prediction is much cheaper and much more rapid than genomic prediction. But there are some drawbacks. They're not, it turns out they're often complementary with the type of predictions they can make. So we often will combine both sets of data now, the genomic and the phenomic predictors. But there's a lot of data here. So this is one study from the Genomes to Fields project, all these different locations. They flew drones, number of flights, but I want to draw your attention here. We're talking about each set is multiple gigabytes or terabytes. And same thing with the Circa project, where we're looking at reducing nitrogen use in maize. We're talking about very large data sets. And these need to be processed, cleaned, turned into actionable information. And that's a lot of what my group has spent a lot of time on, especially Mustafa and Aaron and Alper, who I showed before. So why do I think this phenomic prediction and phenomic approaches are really going to revolutionize science? Why do I think they're going to largely displace a lot of genomic information? So in plant breeding, at least in maize breeding, only about 20% of our variation actually is attributable to genetics, in the DNA. If we think about what actually causes a phenotype and causes a farmer to see a certain type of yield, it's not just the DNA, it's also the environment, the G/E interaction, management, microbes, and then stochasticity. And all these things are complicated. There's epistasis, there's gene networks, there's post-translational modification, and DNA alone can't really capture that. And so what we think of now is that there's networks of biology that occur, and instead of trying to measure that one lipid we care about, we're probably better off measuring thousands or very deep dimensional data of easy to measure phenotypes. And then what we do is we take all these easy measured phenotypes and we throw them in machine learning models with the trait of interest we're trying to predict. and we do a very good job of predicting the difficult phenotype we care about. So this is not the same thing as phenotypic selection, where somebody would go out and say, I like tall plants and I'm going to select on those. This is much more data-driven, and it's really successful based on the high dimensionality that captures not only the nature or the genetics, but also the nurture and all the interactions that occur there. So just a couple quick examples here of how we're using deep learning. We're mainly using it for specific calling of traits. So I showed you senescence. So somebody manually scored 22,000 plots, mostly Luke, Cody, and Aaron, and rated senescence in these plots. And it was pretty straightforward and easy for Aaron and Cody to train a deep learning model to actually do the job of scoring senescence for us. So we get a single measure. It's a one-dimensional phenotype. It's not a phenomic capturing of all the information there. But this is where things really come in handy for automating things we would otherwise do by hand. Another example, which was just accepted in Plant Phenome Journal, Nick Shepard developed a deep learning CNN for maize tassel scoring with 13,000 images from Texas and Wisconsin from the Genomes to Fields program. And so in this case, he manually looked at all these plants, said whether they were tasseling or not at these various drone flights, and then trained a deep learning algorithm from the Keras package. So actually not very computationally intensive, runs pretty quick, and it can actually score tasseling within our plants fairly decently. So that's fairly exciting. So last thing I want to cover is teaching, training, and mentoring. So, I wasn't trained in any type of these tools. I was trained in classical quantitative genetics and statistics, but these tools are coming fast and they're going to displace everything we know. As I talk to teaching faculty here, they seem really concerned with students using AIs to cheat, and they seem, less thoughtful about preparing them for their future job, which is going to have these tools. And the example I always go back to is when I was in middle school, I was told, well, you can't use a calculator on the exam because you won't have one in real life. But now I carry my phone with me. I have a better calculator than the graphing calculator. The ultimate thing that matters in the end is the output that our students produce for their employer, right? And so we need to train them to use the best tools for their future job. So I try and challenge students with projects that require these things. I require all my graduate students to use ChatGPT or another LLM to help write their thesis or thesis proposal. I say that's absolutely required. And if they don't like it, that's fine. But hopefully they learn something in the process and they're not scared of these tools, as many people try and scare them off and say, well, you can't learn anything that way, or they'll hallucinate. But they keep getting better and better. And we need to have our students be at the cutting edge of using these things. I already mentioned learning code is obsolete. But the last thing is, this is really a transdisciplinary field. I work with a lot of computer scientists, statisticians, agricultural engineers. I think that's the only way to be able to learn how to effectively and appropriately use and be at the leading edge of these types of tools. And so, as an example of this, Chloe Tilley is a undergrad in soil and crop sciences, and she worked with my PhD student. And pretty quickly, they were able to develop a YOLO and a segment anything model to be able to calculate maize leaf area, which was the pictures were unfortunately taken in not a perfect way at Nader. And so they developed a workaround to try and estimate the leaf area from that. One of the big problems is, where do you get education so that you can train students? And I think that's a real challenge right now. There's very few resources I can point anybody to. I think this is one of those cases of nobody knows anything, so just try it and learn something. You got to be an experiential learner. But if I did have to point out one resource, I think SciVerse, and Tyson Swetnam is a co-director of SciVerse at University of Arizona. I have Tyson come speak to my class, to faculty, lots of places, because he really is at the bleeding edge of understanding these tools, not just ChatGPT, but all the small tools that are being developed that can help agriculture and researchers do a better job with what they're trying to do. So I won't waste time sharing all the acknowledgments, but thanks for everybody for the support, and thanks for CAST and Society for In Vitro Biology for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, for a fascinating presentation. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Tedeschi, who will be speaking on precision livestock modeling and nutrition systems. Welcome, Dr. Tedeschi.
Thank you, Deepika. Can you hear me? So I really like to acknowledge and thank the cast and the folks behind the scene here to actually bring us to this group to talk a little bit about what we see about the use of artificial intelligence in terms of livestock production. So what I want to start here is Seth Murray already set the stage, talking a little bit about AI and different tools. Or different approaches you have, different methodologies. And I just want to remind everybody that AI is a very broad and a big definition. And the most important ones that we most often talk about is the machine learning and deep learning. And essentially what we're trying to do here is using machines, essentially computer systems, to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. These tasks include learning from data recognition, patterns, making decisions, and solving problems without actually being explicitly programmed for each one of these tasks. So essentially, it's a combination of data collected and what are the outcomes, and asking these systems, these tools, to actually help us to understand what is going on and improve predictions for, in our case, livestock production. So this is essentially what we're trying to use or do with the artificial intelligence in terms of livestock production. So collecting a series of data, different data using different types of sensors, and those sensors can be in different places. Then we take this data and send it to what we call the machine learning or deep learning algorithms. Those are part of AI. And these algorithms will understand or interpret the data and figure out how the outcomes or the predictions or what we're trying to observe here are being produced by the data that we are collecting. So then we have these systems that are trained on specific data, and they actually provide some insights, and it can actually give us some alerts to support farm management. And in essence, it goes down to this point here, is using the data that we're collecting in specific scenarios, production scenarios, to what is the best decision for that type of production in a very quick way. So in terms of livestock farming, we have many different activities in livestock production that we are actually right now using AI tools. So I'm listing here some of these, like health monitoring and disease detection, behavior and welfare assessment, reproduction, growth performance of animals, feeding, nutrition management, even in grazing, precision grazing and movement tracking, and also looking at environmental impact and how we can minimize environmental impact of livestock and livestock production in the sense. So in terms of health monitoring and disease detection, we have these sensors that most of these sensors are on the animal. So they're sensors associated to the animal, and we're actually very simple, similar to what we have on our iPhones and some of these wearable devices we use right now. So these sensors are detecting or measuring specific variables or specific conditions of the animals. So we take this information like body temperature, heart rates, rumination in terms of ruminants, feeding behavior, movement patterns, and we send this to systems. They may actually even look at computer vision systems that we're looking at what is the behavior of those animals. Then we actually can collect sound and audio, analyze the vocalization of these animals, what they're trying to express, what they're feeling in terms of welfare. And all of this data goes to what we call AI algorithms. And we it could be machine learning, it could be deep learning. And then we take this, try to understand how this is related to potential health concerns, and helps us to make decisions on this. In terms of a behavior and welfare assessment, we do the exactly same thing. Is essentially trying to track what those animals are doing, how they're performing, detect possible problems like postures, social behavior, if those animals are expressing weird movements or different movements, recognize different audio, and also monitor environmental sensors like temperature, humidity, like wind speed, wear flow, and so forth. And then it goes to AI again, and we have a much better idea of what is affecting these animals and what is actually preventing their performance in that sense. In terms of reproductive management, there are many sensors out there. We're collecting activity. We're using collars. We call some of those smart collars. They're measuring temperature. They're measuring movements of these animals. Heat detection in terms of reproduction. We also use computer vision. Computer vision is essentially analysis of a video or cameras or photos. And we're looking at the behavior of these animals, how these animals are moving, what exactly these animals are doing. They're consuming specific feeds, how they're consuming that specific feed. We can actually measure body temperature or vaginal temperature. And all of these go to what we call these automated alerts that actually will tell the producer or whoever is helping that in terms of management, the reproduction of these animals, if it's the right time. In terms of weight estimation and growth monitoring, we have a lot of different systems here that we use. Some of those are using 3D cameras or computer visions or essentially thermal images as well, and we're trying to capture the shape or the body shape of these animals, and from that trying to determine what is the body weight of these animals and how long those animals are going to stay on feed and to a specific production level that we want to achieve. Electronic weight scales like the ones that I'm showing here. So those animals could either be a walk-on or just the half body weight of these animals, that we will actually have some idea of what is the weight of these animals, and we can associate that type of data with computer vision, which is taking a picture of the whole body of the animal, the whole animal. And we take this, we send this to AI models, and we can actually forecast of the performance, the growth expectation or the expectance of the performance of these animals. And like I said, how many days on feed these animals are needed to achieve specific performance for these animals. In terms of a precision grazing, this is where we need help a lot, because it's for grazing animals, it's really hard to collect data. As I said, the area, the size of the area, and how the spread out these animals are in these systems. So we do need to use GPS collars and smart tags to actually track the position of these animals. And not only tracking the position of these animals give us the activity of these animals, but also give us information about where those animals are more frequently located at, and what type of interventions we have to do in terms of nutrition. So in terms of virtual fencing systems, we can actually control where we want those animals to graze or where we want those animals to spend more time. And actually drones actually have a visual location of what those animals are in association with the GPS and that information. All of that, we can actually associate that with satellite imaging also, and we have a better information of what is the quality and quantity of forage available for these animals. In terms of environmental monitoring, we have all of these different sensors. We can collect not only the previous or most common type of information or climate information like temperature, humidity, wind speed, light, but we can also collect different type of gases or greenhouse gases being produced by these animals, or where this greenhouse gas is coming from, not only for security reasons in terms of other systems, other agricultural activities, but we can also have information on the animals and even helping select our animals for low environmental impact. And again, all of this information goes sent to an AI machine or an AI trained system that will have a much better information of what to do with these animals. In terms of feeding and nutrition management, it combines these smart feeders, intake monitoring of these animals. We have information about these automated feed mixers and dispensers that will actually target specific animals or group of animals of how much feed these animals need to consume. And even if we want to change the composition of the diet, what type of ingredients we can mix and to feed to these animals. And everything has to go through what I call a nutritional modeling system in association with an AI. So this is just to show any scale of development of tools that we're using right now, from identification, electronic identification of animals, all the way to rumen boluses that we're measuring, trying to measure what is happening in terms of fermentation in the rumen, all the way to these machine learning systems, computer vision systems, and robotics that can actually help us to manage these animals. And in essence, we're trying to develop something similar to this. So you have animals, we're weighing these animals, we know the body weight of these animals, what is the performance of these animals. So we take information about the diet, what is the performance of these animals, we send it to a machine, AI systems that will actually send information to what is the best diet formulation and optimization for these animals or specific animals, that send that information back to mixing these diets and feeding these animals for a specific target performance. So most of the AI now in agriculture, like Seth showed to you, it's really based on a computer vision. And we can actually use computer vision today to actually help us or assist us in many of the tasks that we do on a daily basis at a farm, at a ranch level. For instance, like computer vision for feed intake, and we have to know what are those animals are consuming and how they're performing. Also, computer vision to detect body weight. As I mentioned before, we're measuring different dimensions in the body of these animals from different angles or different perspectives, and we can actually have a specific determination of what is likely the body weight of this animal and how this animal is performing. Similarly, we can have ideas for body condition score of these animals, how fat they are, and what is how long it's going to take for these animals to get a specific composition of the carcass that is desired for these animals. Healthy status, I mentioned this before. Different curvature when these animals are walking, different pacing, how fast these animals are moving. All of this can help us detecting these animals. In terms of combination or combining the possibilities of computer vision, and in terms of animal and agriculture, we can combine all of this, not only the animal, but also like in a forage production. We take information about the animals, take information about the forage that these animals are grazing on, like quality, like quantity, location, what is there most of those forages are located at, and we can actually take better decisions to manage these animals. So the next scientific breakthrough, as we call, is really sensors, the Internet of Things, connecting all of this, and machine learning or deep learning, connecting all of this information. So we're moving from those systems, those times that we use a lot of mechanistic modeling or more specific models, moving to what we call these machine learning systems. And it does not mean that we have to move all the way from mechanistic modeling to adopt 100% machine learning. We can actually develop systems that we call hybrid intelligent mechanistic models. And this is most of the research that we're doing right now, is combining specific mechanistic models that actually shows or tells us about the underlying biology and the mechanisms of animal growth, for instance, pasture growth, for instance, and combining this with machine learning, where we can collect a lot of data much faster, and combining all of this information in terms of AI, what we get from these neural networks here, plugging that back to to mechanistic models. Then we can actually run these mechanistic models and actually use some output of these mechanistic models to feed the AI and back and forth. So in terms of AI is what I say, it's the glue of the big data. So we have all of this data we're collecting here, and we need to take all of this data and actually combine all of this data from different cow-calf partners all the way to stalker partners in terms of grazing beef cattle here, production of beef cattle, feedlot partners. We have carcass information of this. All of this data is collected. It goes to what we call a central point, like beef cerebral, for instance. And then this one takes or send information to what you have to do here to change, what you have to do here to change, and so forth, to actually improve whatever it is we're trying to produce. So I hope this gives you a brief overview of what type of information we're collecting, and in terms of precision livestock farming using artificial intelligence. And with that, I think we're ready to take some questions.
Thank you, Dr. Tedeschi, for a fantastic presentation. I learned a lot today from your presentation. At this time, we will open the floor for questions from the audience. As a reminder, please place your questions in the chat. Dr. Tedeschi, we already have one question from the audience for you. Do the animal sensors develop a baseline of the behavior for each animal, or is this a general herd behavior?
Well, that's good. So whenever we're using sensors, we want to use pre-trained. We can use pre-trained database that would actually use some of this data from specific sensors. But it's always a good idea to have data collected on your specific animal, your specific production, because that may change a little bit from sensors that were used in different production scenarios. We want to make sure that it's going to adapt or is going to perform really well to the same situation that you have.
Thank you. Dr. Murray, you mentioned a little bit already about students not using a calculator or when they're doing calculations. Just to elaborate a little bit more on that, a general question for you. Why would you require students to use ChatGPT in their thesis? Wouldn't that be endorsing bad science?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question, but I mean, we hold students accountable to what they deliver us, right? I don't think we should hold students accountable to how they get there, because when they go to work for an employer, whether that be the federal government or a university or industry, they're judged based on the results they produce, not on the methods that they use. And so if you have something that's going to help you do a better job, it's a tool. It can be abused, but why not use it? But you have to be accountable for your answers. And I think only by playing with these tools, I think we've all seen the hallucinations of making up fake references and stuff like that. They should learn how to, make sure that these references are real and go and read those papers to actually connect to that information. So, we want to train the students of the future. And I think, part of that is they need to experiment with these tools.
Sounds great. Thank you, Dr. Murray. One more question for you, Dr. Murray, about plant tissue culture from our audience. Which AI model we can use in plant tissue culture?
That's a really good question. I'm going to forget their name, but I did see a talk at the AAAS meeting in Boston a couple months ago now, where there's a lot of people. I think it's more on the human health cell culture system, but they're imaging cell culture lines, and they've developed, I think she said, 800 or so phenotypes that they can extract from that. I am I'll say I'm deeply skeptical of directly training deep learning models with AI images to produce a single result. And the reason why is oftentimes it's not explainable. You can try and use attention maps to try and figure it out. But more importantly, it's not necessarily transferable. So if we train, what we've seen is when we train a deep learning model, sometimes it's how we crop the image is what the attention map focuses on. So if you want to take that model and expand it to somebody else's breeding population or another crop or another environment, those models may fall apart and you won't recognize that. So I much prefer the approach where we use the AI tools to extract the features and then use machine learning, which is explainable. You can, investigate individual features to actually proceed with that. I'm not aware of a tool that's specifically aimed at plant tissue culture, to my knowledge.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. A question for you, Dr. Tedeschi. Is this approach being applied or can be applied to drug efficacy studies in animal or mouse models of cancer or any other diseases?
I mean, I'm not specific on this field. So what I can say is, I believe yes, you can train models because, like I said, we're using a lot of a computer vision, and like Seth Murray said, is a lot of image analysis, video analysis, and so forth. And we do have some problems there. But the other side of the machine learning, more specific to machine learning in terms of AI, is really dealing with data by itself. So, and mainly if you have a lot of data points, I should say, and lots of different variables. So you do have to actually look at other tools. So random forest, some other tools like there would be more specific for dealing with data. And of course, you can always use photos of the cancer or specific tissues that you're trying to identify or trying to set or make some recommendations. This one grows faster than this one and so forth. So you can always do that. So you can train the system, but you can also use AI through machine learning to analyze more data, numeric numbers rather than images.
Thank you. The next question is for both of you about examples of integrated plant or animal capitalizing on AI systems for improving productivity.
The one thing I'd say about this is so far there are very few sort of general agriculturalists, right? We all are in our specific niches. Like Luis is in animal science, I'm in plant science. We might know a little bit, enough to be dangerous about the other one. Maybe economists have a little bit more of a broad scope. But I don't think an AI system necessarily would be that well integrated just because of the way our disciplines have been historically separated. And that's why I'll put another plug for, focusing more on helping people do transdisciplinary research, right? I think that's going to be a big key because we do care about improving agriculture overall, and those systems typically have animal and plant components. And so the extension bot is probably about the only thing I can point to that is able to both give you animal and plant information, but I don't know how well integrated it is at this point.
So I think it's what Seth said. It's a let me give you an example. So grazing systems, pasture. This is a combination of I'm gonna call crop production in terms of assuming the forage is a crop. We're managing the pasture, and we're also managing the animals. So this is one possibility of having that. So looking from a big scheme, 35,000 feet, whatever, we can, but it's not necessarily AI by itself. But we can actually look at farms that they have combination of livestock production, grazing, plus feedlot, plus stocking, backgrounding, and they also have crop production, more like cotton, soybeans, corn, stuff like this. And they may, like Seth said, look at from an economical perspective, or like agriculture economics, look at different data, what they're collecting, what is the profit from different combinations of these activities, agriculture activities, and look at which one might be more beneficial or more efficient, or which ways, like how size, area, land area, proportion of my farm or ranch I should devote for grazing, proportion I should devote for specific crops, and so forth. That can be done.
Thank you. Another question from our audience, which is really something that I'm also interested in knowing: what are the challenges in animal science to ensure we stay current with available technologies? And most importantly, how are students being trained on these new technologies and their applications?
I think it goes back to what Seth mentioned before. I think we need to, I believe that before I go to the challenge, let me tell you what we're doing right now. I believe what we have to do is we have to keep training students to understand crop production and also animal production. So animal science, crop and soil science, they have to know the agriculture basics. They have to know the underlying biology behind everything. And then we also need to help students to understand how they can take this type of information and how they can use systems like AI to help them. So I call this a specialized assistant. AI is a specialized assistant that you can actually ask and use it to help you to answer questions. But you need to know the subject, you need to know the topic, otherwise you may be misled, or like Seth said, you may have hallucinations or information that is not true or correct. So you have to know the subject, you need to know the topic. So the challenge for animal science production right now, the way I see it, it comes not only from a training perspective, but application in the field. I see Wi-Fi transferring data, for instance. I think this is a big issue right now. So we can collect all of this data, but how do we transfer? How do we get access to this data? And how do we train our models?
Thank you. Last question. In addition to ChatGPT, which tools can we use to analyze data?
You know, I'll just point out, I put a shout out to Tyson Swetnam. He introduced me to Hugging Face. Hugging Face is like an online marketplace of AI tools. That's where he showed me how you can do a literature review. You can plug in papers. It's not a ChatGPT thing, and it will do a literature review for you, right? And there's people in computer science who are always developing these. I mean, it's like R packages or Python packages. They're coming out every day. And so what I'd encourage you to do is take some of the training through SIVBs, and just, you got to play around and read the literature relevant to your discipline, because there's no way anybody can stay current on all the tools that are being developed across the globe right now in this area.
Yeah, quickly, Deepika, that's exactly what it is. It's you need to know your field, you need to know the subject, and figure out who are the folks working on that. ChatGPT is a generalist. It's a general thing. So, and it's not even trained on specific topics. So Seth actually shared the extension bot, and there are others. We are working on dedicated LLMs, large language models, to answer specific questions. So figure out, once you know what you're trying to solve, what is the problem, then you can use systems to search for that. And stay tuned. All of this, every day is a different day. It's a new day in AI world.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Murray and Dr. Tedeschi, for sharing your time and insights on this very important topic. I would also like to thank CAST for providing the expertise in supporting this webinar program, to the Society of In Vitro Biology membership and education committees for planning and supporting this webinar, and all of you for joining us today. As a reminder, this event has been recorded and will be made available online in next few weeks. As a reminder, SIVB will be holding our annual meeting at Hilton Norfolk, the Main, in Norfolk, Virginia, from June 7th to 10th, 2025. We have an exciting scientific program with a phenomenal lineup of speakers, and we cannot wait to share that with you. You can learn more about the meeting at sivb.org/meetings or just scan the QR code on your screen. Please remain safe and healthy and have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you all in Virginia this June.